I think a lot of times we ask young men to be leaders. We ask them to be captains, but we don't take the time to teach them the skills they need to be leaders and captains. And this program has allowed me to do that. It's allowed me to teach leadership skills. If you don't have that on your football team, you're not going to be successful. And I'm going to tell you, we have some kids who are outstanding athletes, and we have some kids that are as strong as an ox. But we won a football game last year. We put up close to 400 yards rushing against a high school that we played with our 5th-in-string running back in the backfield, and we didn't miss a beat because they trusted them.
Yeah.
And those kids had been presented with an opportunity, and they didn't want to let their teammates down. Now, that doesn't have to do with how fast someone is or how much weight they can lift. That has to do with, I love you and I trust you.
Right. Yeah. I'll put out for you.
Yeah.
We're gonna put out for each other.
And I'm starting to see that more this year with kids volunteering to go down to the middle school and help coach the young kids. You know, we're going to start sending kids down to the elementary to do reading in the 2nd grade classes.
Right.
And just, I think they're starting to understand too that it's the idea of a sacrifice.
Right. So it's not like
it's not an emotion. You know, it's not something you see in the movies, and that's what I tell them all the time. You're not going to see love in a movie. Love's tough, and it's a sacrifice of maybe what you want for the betterment of the whole. And my kids have just made so many growths, or have grown so much in all these areas. You know, it's easy to show you tangibly on paper where we've gotten better, and you can attribute that to strength and conditioning. But I think there's a lot more to it than that. You know, I think our kids take a lot of pride in the fact that we do things different.
Right.
And you know, we've been through a lot since we've been here. I've lost a player. You know, I had a player pass away. We had to get through that. You know, car wrecks. It just feels like the first 2 years we came up against so many challenges that had nothing to do with playing the game of football, and we could always fall back on, you know, love, humility, commitment, and responsibility to kind of pull us back together. Right. You know, and it gives me chills when I think about it.
That's huge.
But see, this kind of stuff is even more impactful at a small school, I think.
Yeah.
Because you have more guys that have to be able to do multiple things.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, I believe in the weight room and I believe in the strength training, but it comes down to building that person and getting them the confidence to believe in themselves too. I think is important. Yeah. You know, bring my principal in here if you don't mind, just to tell you how what we've done has changed the complexion with discipline and things like that in the building. I was told that before I came here, they had problems with racial issues on the football team because one side of the district is growing very fast and they're putting up homes and apartment complexes. So the dynamics of the district is changing. And then on the other side, you have the older farm community. And I was told there was racial tension before I come in. You know, James Ward, who now is going to Dayton and will probably be their starting safety next year, by the way.
Wow.
One of the biggest changes for him was there was none of that. He didn't have to, there was none of the racial tension stuff, you know, within the football team and within the locker room. And I take a lot of pride in that.
Yeah.
You know, what made that happen? It wasn't lifting and running.
Yeah.
You know, that time together builds a bond, but it was the leadership council. It was the champions meetings. It was the spring and the football dinner with the conditioning teams and mixing the kids up. I just think that's the biggest difference is implementing those things here. You know, the spring and the football dinner.
That's what's made it different.
The leadership council, the champions meetings. Those are kind of the intangible things you can't put your hand on. But having been other places and not had the same kind of success that we're having here, I can tell you what the X factor is. The real test as to whether this is as effective as I hope it is, and I know Nick and I have always talked about it being, is next year and the year after. You know, do we keep this kind of consistency? But the other thing too that I've tried to express to my kids, and even when I took the job here, was that if you want somebody that's going to be focused on wins and losses, then I'm not the guy you want to hire. If you want somebody that's going to be focused on trying to build a better young man, then I'm the guy you want for the job. And you know, that first year when we went 3-7, we were able to look back and go, we were successful, and here's why. Here's what we did. You know, here's the foundation we put in place. Here's how you grew as a person. Here's the way we've improved in the school.
Right.
Here's the way behavior problems are down. You know, we were able to say that made us a success. You know, year 2, when we were 5-5, that's when in the preseason, a lot of those things I mentioned earlier, we were trying to figure out how are we going to get through that, overcome it, and still play a football season. You know, but I had promised my kids after we went 3-7 that I would never leave another senior class on the short end of the stick. And we busted our butts to be at 5-5 with the way some things had played out for us. And there's such a bond. There's a real good bond between player and coach here. You know, and it's not just me, it's with my assistant coaches too.
Right.
There's the intangible things it's hard to articulate.
Yeah.
And see, that's why I coach football. You know, my coach in high school, he's now the offensive coordinator at Muskingum College, and to this day I can pick up the phone and call him, and it's like we just talked yesterday. Right. And it didn't have to do with what he taught me about down blocking or pulling. It had to do with all the life lessons that I learned from him. And I think with the things we do as far as teaching character development, teaching leadership, you know, giving some kids some core ethical values to hang their hat on, that when they leave here, they're leaving not just as good athletes, but also as better people. One of my players that had stayed with me talked him into coming out as a senior, and you know, he ended up going from a kid that everybody said was going to drop out, he was going to end up in jail, to a kid that finished the league as one of the best offensive linemen in the league, is going to play in the All-Star game, and is probably going to end up going to college. Not to play football, which I think is even better.
Yeah. Right.
You know, and that's, I think that's kind of the environment we're creating, where we'll take everybody.
That's cool.
I think a lot of times we ask young men to be leaders, we ask them to be captains, but we don't take the time to teach them the skills they need to be leaders and captains, and this program has allowed me to do that. It's allowed me to teach leadership skills that they're going to need, not only as their team captain, but as a father someday, as a husband, and as an employee. Right. You know, what they do on the field, that's going to last for 4 years. I think what they learn off the field, that's going to last them a lifetime.
Right.